Let's start with the biggest question of the game. The biggest question in the game is the running back situation for Michigan. And there's a lot of reasons for that, but it's obviously has to do with the health of Blake Corum. We saw him go down last week against Illinois. Didn't look good. Thankfully, he came back and was able to at least play, a snap in the second half of that Illinois game. And so it's like, okay, well, maybe he's okay. Then we saw him handing out Thanksgiving turkeys with his own NIL money, by the way, because Blake Corum is an absolute real one. But it began the optimism for his availability and maybe even effectiveness in this week's game. Now, do I think that he's going to be full bore 100% Blake Corum? Probably not. Listen, I hope he is. I really hope he is. But I have my doubts about, again, his percentage of 80%, 90%. Now, is that good enough? Probably, because Blake Corum is a real dude. Now, it gets compounded, the Corum injury, because of the health behind Blake Corum. Like, Donovan Edwards is a really good back. I think everybody knows that. He's versatile. He catches it really well out of the backfield. That's been, well documented. He blocks really well in pass protection. He's a heck of a runner, inside and outside. So, he starts at a lot of other places in the country. And his lack of ability or absence, I guess I should say, last week against Illinois really affected them. To the tune that when both of those guys then were out of the game, Edwards from the start and then Corum in the second half, between C.J. Stokes and Isaiah Gash, they only averaged 3 yards per carry in the second half against Illinois. See, so that's not going to cut it against Ohio State for reasons that I'll talk about a little bit later. So that's the main question of the game. And really the main question for Michigan in this game is, what are you going to get at the running back position? And right now, it remains to be seen. So we'll see how that plays itself out during the course of the week. There are a few other guys on that offense, and let's focus on the Michigan offense a little bit more specifically. There are some other injuries that we just are going to have to wait and see. A.J. Henning was out last week. Trevor Keegan was out last week. Luke Schoonmaker was out last week. All of those guys and their absence really affected Michigan's ability to play efficient football in the second half of that game. I think that was very clear. You saw Isaiah Gash out there in meaningful situations, caught the fourth down ball, which was fantastic, by the way, dropped one on the previous series that would have been a sure touchdown. Andrell Anthony dropped a fourth down pass down the sideline that would have been a huge touchdown and maybe even salted the game away at that point in terms of how the game was playing out. Roman Wilson had a drop, right? So their efficiency on offense was not great, and I'd expect them to be more healthy. I think that we're going to see a lot of those guys back on the field. We'll see how healthy and how effective they are. Now, before I get into what is the most important unit for Michigan's offense, let me quickly talk about J.J. McCarthy. And really, with J.J. McCarthy, it comes more in the form of a question. And the question is, can J.J. McCarthy be the catalyst to a Michigan win? We don't know the answer to that. And we won't know the answer to that until it's proven out. Now, I think he played pretty well against Illinois, but there were some play calls and some strategy that were limiting the reliance on JJ only, right? Going for field goals there, which was the correct strategy, was exactly what they should have done. And it was an acknowledgement that, listen, we're probably going to struggle in the red zone as we have at times during the course of this season. And so our best option is just let's take as many field goals as we can and eventually catch up and eventually beat Illinois, which they eventually did. That's not an indictment necessarily on J.J. McCarthy, but it's certainly out there, okay? A lot of us thought that Jim Harbaugh and this Michigan coaching staff were going towards J.J. McCarthy because he was going to provide a higher ceiling than what they had last year with Cade McNamara. That was the conversation last year when McCarthy was just a young player and starting to get some snaps in key situations. And it was like, when are they going to go to J.J. because he clearly raises their ceiling, his athletic ability, his arm strength, his ability to throw the ball down the field. It's going to give this offense a different dimension. And we thought that that was going to happen when McCarthy was then named the starter. And it started too early, but it has since kind of deteriorated, to be quite honest with you. So JJ was supposed to raise the ceiling, and then all of a sudden you look up and in the last 3 games, he's throwing the ball for under 50%, or right around 50%, a little over 50% against Illinois, under 50% in the previous 2. Well, that's a concerning deal because in the event that Corum is not healthy, that Edwards is not healthy, or that the run game is ineffective, you're going to need a quarterback that can go out there and be the catalyst to a potential win. And we don't know if McCarthy can go to that level. So that's a question mark going into this game. Now, very talented player, made a few really key throws in that win over Illinois in comeback fashion. And I think that's going to give him a lot of confidence moving forward. So that'll be interesting. I do think that he's going to need to be more of a threat with his legs in this game than maybe he has been in previous games. And remember, with Cade McNamara's health being what it is and him not being available, they don't have a lot of depth at quarterback, which means that they have not wanted to expose J.J. McCarthy in the run game very much. So now in this game, when they absolutely need it, does he play more of a factor? We'll have to wait and see. Hey, thanks for watching. If you enjoy that clip, make sure you click subscribe somewhere down here. From game highlights to exclusive interviews and rankings, we've got everything you need as a college football fan right here. College football on Fox.